Ed Sullivan, people tend to sort of point out, his posture and sort of his dowdy way of going about things. But make no mistake, and I was fortunate enough to interview his grandson, and Ed Sullivan was very hip, and he knew the cultural landscape, and he was always had his feelers out for the next big thing. And he was
Mhm.
going through the airport, which is mentioned in the book, and this is '63, and the Beatles are coming back from I'm trying to remember what country it was. It might have been Holland or Belgium, but it was somewhere where Please Please Me had come out, which went number one in England in '63, and already there was an element of Beatlemania there in Europe. And he sees them, and he's like, wow, okay, these guys, obviously this is important. Look at the way the girls are reacting to them. But also, as I found out later, he had some of his agents, if you will, talent scouts who apparently had seen the Beatles live, and then becomes this perfect storm of Brian going over, hammering out the contract for the appearance, and then it just so happens that as the Beatles are just going on the national scene, um, JFK is assassinated.
Yeah.
The death of Camelot, the malaise in the United States, and then all of a sudden, I Want to Hold Your Hand comes out just as fresh as can be, joyful, maybe a month later or less. And it
Hmm.
was like the Life magazine reporter Gail Cameron told me she covered Camelot from ground zero. She traveled with the Beatles to South Florida. She's the one who's responsible for putting in the pool for that iconic picture. She
Yeah.
said it was as if it was okay to smile in America again.
I know it wasn't their first stop in America, but it seems that it was really here in Florida and in Miami where they embraced American culture and the Miami lifestyle. They seem to just grasp it all in here, maybe not in New York because they were in New York or Washington before that, I forget. But
They were in New York, then Washington, but I think you're 100% correct. And if you've seen um, McCartney's Eyes of the Storm book, something very interesting occurred when Paul was taking all of his pictures. In New York and DC, where they're kind of prisoners in their hotel and it's snowy, he takes black and white. But once he gets to Florida, he switches to the color film. And those images are just wonderful because they're so intimate and familiar. And the Beatles are relaxing, and there's a girl giving George, a drink, and they're out water skiing. And this is where the payoff really starts to come from them being the kids from Workaday, England.
yeah.
George is 20,
Mm.
and Paul is talking about, we'd never seen palm trees. And you just have
Yeah.
to remember that as you're taking it all in. We all expected the Beatles have just always been famous. Well, no, they weren't.
No.
And Paul said, I interviewed a guy who basically was a baggage handler in New York, and he sees the Beatles kind of sitting in this blockhouse by themselves because the management's trying to get him to avoid all the screaming crowds, and Paul's sitting there, click 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 click, and the guy goes, what the hell are you taking pictures of? And he says, hey, I in case the bubble bursts tomorrow, I want to remember every step of it.